آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little. Can't spend 2 weeks a chapter. Yes? Can you what? You want to go downstairs? Oh, the chairs? No, not this time.
No, play doctor.
You want to play doctors?
Yeah.
Where?
Go to the back of the chairs.
Only, you can use 2 chairs.
No, we mean all chairs.
No, I assume.
No, doctors have all chairs.
Why don't you guys use that room, the big room there with all those chairs in it? Yes, go ahead, Hamna. Hamna, where's your other sock?
I don't know.
So you were walking around with one sock?
I'm going to take one of those ones right there.
You take one of them, okay?
Okay.
Go.
Like that one too.
Yeah, you can take that one. Good. Bismillah.
I'm going to take that one.
Go ahead, one of them. Okay, Bismillah. We met last week, right? We didn't meet the week before. Yeah. And we're going to meet next week. We won't meet the week after. I think that week I'm traveling. I think. I have to check. Just a reminder, this Saturday for you guys. Saturday? Friday. Wait, which one's the boys' bonfire? Is that Saturday or Friday? Can't remember. I believe Saturday is the boys' bonfire, Friday is the girls' bonfire. But I'll wait till Noman Bhai comes for the actual date. We're still going to meet anyway, but the bonfire will be after Isha. There's no real talk, just hang out, chill. Some scholars will be here as well, inshallah. But I'll let you know when. Anyway, bismillah. So we left off with Khabib Nurmagomedov. And we left off talking about Imam Shaman rahmatullahi alayh. And we spoke specifically about the connection between Khabib and Imam Shaman. Now, if we fast forward quite a bit, we get to his father. And, you know, when Khabib himself when his father was young, they actually moved. And you see a lot of the government was actually pushing them to move from the mountains to the flatlands, farming areas. It's really hard to keep track of everyone in those areas and in the mountainous areas. And on top of that, it was hard for people to continue farming and working there. Whatever farming you can do there was very, very sparse. And just to fund people's lives and keep people healthy, they had to move them into the villages and sort of the areas that are more farm-related. So that's what they did. And when they did that, it wasn't as if their workload was any less. Now, instead of being on a mountainous region, they're more on a farming region, but it's still the same reality. They had to still go into the mountains on many occasions. They had to still travel towards the rivers and pick out water. They still had to educate their kids. And while educating the kids, they had to make sure that the kids are getting an education formally and informally. Informally within the household of what they need to do. And so there's a lot happening there. Khabib, he gives a lot of credit to his parents and a lot of credit to his father and his grandparents, because when you look at what they had to go through and what they had to bear, it's a lot more than we give credit for. And that's sort of what I want to begin with today. This idea that sometimes it's very hard to understand something unless you go through it. If someone has surgery, like, oh man, I know how you feel, but if you've never been through surgery, you have no idea how it feels. How many of you have ever been through surgery before? Surgery? No? Surgery? No surgery? No surgery? So surgery, when you complete your surgery, because I've had a few, like shoulder, even something as small as shoulder surgery. When you wake up from shoulder surgery, well, you're highly medicated, so that's fine. When the medication wears off, and then like you move to get up, it's the strangest feeling. Because there's no blood, or it should have been wiped out at least. You're patched up, you're sealed up, there's a bandage over the stitches, but you feel like something happened inside. Like you feel that something went inside and it messed up what was the structure. No, and you can't keep disturbing. Something came in there and just messed things up. And no one will ever understand what I mean until they go through it themselves. I'll give another example. Anas, take off your shoes outside. Thank you. If someone I had a couple of near-death experiences in my life. One where I should have died all intents and purposes according to physicians. But, we can say like, oh man, that was horrible, I feel bad, etc. But until you experience one, may Allah protect you all from it, at the end, okay? You'll never understand. And so there was a person who I was speaking with recently who almost died, and he was just talking to me about it. And I was like, bro, I understand. And he didn't know my background, like what the accident I went through. So then I was like, you experienced this and this, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, how'd you know? I'm like, when I was 22, how old was I? 23. And I told him what happened to me. He's like, oh man. But there was a fraternity in idiocy for what we both did to get hurt. But there's a fraternity in like feeling near-death experiences that no one else could really understand. Just because we happen, Anas, that's it, that's enough. I said 2 chairs. You took 3 out, and that's enough. No. You're right, but we can't take all those chairs out, okay? You can play the ones that are there, that's it, okay?
Right there.
No, I'm sorry.
Right there.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's right there.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to go to the car.
No.
Okay, then go put those chairs over there, okay? Only those 3. So until a person has an experience with something, they never understand. And this is a hadith as well. لَيْسَ الْخَبْرُ كَالْمُعَايَنَةِ. That having knowledge of something is not the same as experiencing something. If I were to, Anas, that's it, no more. Okay, you need 4 cats, enough. If I were to tell you it's not easy raising kids, and you don't have kids, you can see like the frustration of what happens every Sunday with me over here, but it's not going to be the same as being there yourself, and then you're like, oh my God, this stinks. Alhamdulillah, it's awesome, but it stinks. You understand my point. My point is that until you gain a certain level of experience in something, you'll never completely understand. In Khabib, as he's growing older, he begins to, in hindsight, have a lot of appreciation for his father. Because his father went through a lot of things that he himself never went through. His father set the stage for him doing what he eventually does. But now it brings, sort of sheds some light for us. A lot of us, we're here because the sacrifices and the risks that people before us took. Yes?
Can I be the dentist of the doctor?
Okay, ask Hamna, maybe she'll do it, okay?
Okay.
How many of your parents traveled here from overseas? Yours did. Did yours come from overseas, or were yours born here? Your parents, did they come from overseas, or were they born here? Overseas. What about yours? Overseas. What about yours? Okay, so split. What about yours? So it's a split. Both mine are from overseas. And so if you ever hear like their stories, like my dad came with only a certain amount of money in his pocket, and then he came the day he arrived in Chicago. It so happened it was the biggest snowstorm of the year, which I actually did some research and it was actually true. But it's so cliche. And he had no clothing on him except just what a normal desi wears. And then he arrives in his chappals, and my uncle comes to pick him up, and like, here's some boots, and here's a hat, and he's never seen snow before. And then life continues. But they did go through a lot of sacrifice, a lot of difficulty, and that set the stage for us. So sometimes when we get frustrated, we get upset, or we talk back, we're talking back, which we shouldn't, but we're talking back only looking at what they went through in front of our eyes, which is what? They're working, they're having more of a stable life because we saw the latter part, or at least the post-difficulty part. But they're speaking from the point that they were born, and they know all the trials and tribulations and hardships and coming over here and then funding themselves and funding over others and then bringing them over and hosting them initially and then feeding them. They're coming with this whole different background. Are they always right in what they say? No, they're not. But unless we could appreciate the difficulty they underwent, we'll never appreciate why they sometimes are speaking with a chip on their shoulder or with some frustration or with some annoyance, etc. When they're like, oh, you're being so lazy. You're like, what are you talking about? I'm not being lazy at all. But in comparison, like my wife, a little while back, she called me lazy. I'm like, how am I lazy? And she's like, well, you're not like your dad. Your dad never stops moving, and he doesn't ever stop moving, mashallah. Okay, get one doctor's chair. And take your book with you. Okay, after the chair. Okay, go. And so, he just never stops moving. He's always working around the house. And my wife's like, you're lazy to me. Because in comparison to my dad, even a robot would be lazy. But that's just how my dad's programmed. I'm not programmed that way. But until I can understand, you can't pass judgment on someone until you experience what they experience. And to be true to them, it's not fair to call them out I'm not talking about anyone here, I promise. I'm not talking about anyone, I promise. I'm saying, but in general, it's not fair to call them out when we don't know their experience. And just it's not fair for them to call us out when we don't know their experiences. So Khabib, what he does in the first few chapters, he spends time laying out the picture for all of us to know what his dad underwent. That's important so we know the background, but it's actually more important because there's a subtle lesson here. Who knows what the subtle lesson is over here? Yes?
Like a small lesson right
Good. So can you identify one small lesson here in Khabib telling us about his dad's struggles? Subtle. What is it? The subtle lesson is that he asked. He learned about his father's struggle. If he didn't know about his dad's struggles, he couldn't tell us. And we see how tight they are. Well, 1 + 1 = 2, right? There's a correlation. He sat with his dad. He learned from his dad. He probably learned from his aunts and uncles, his grandparents. And he put this entire picture together about the difficulty his father went through. And that raised a sense of appreciation in the heart of Khabib. So he subsequently then showed that respect and showed that love and showed that adoration. And then maybe his style towards his parents changed in accordance. So we see that Khabib begins this way for us sort of to gain this lesson. Anyway, Khabib's grandfather, he was a mechanic. And he was a mechanic on a farm. And he was someone who worked really hard. And in his village, he was the first one to drive. And then what he began to do was he would help with the cattle farm. Then he would harvest in the winter with this truck. And then he began to fix the equipment. And then he got all this experience. And then he was able to find a job with the state. So that's how it worked out for him. And then his dad, he worked really hard because he saw how his dad worked. And what his dad did was he did very, very well in school. He had the highest marks in most of his classes, not all of his classes. And on top of that, he tried to really make his mind sharp. He got involved in chess. He tried to, he never yielded to anyone in chess. Maybe he lost them, but he never yielded to anyone in chess. Then on top of that, he began to help his father around. But on top of that, he began to play sports. And this is the point I want to get into next. Sports, this is a key element for young men. I'm not saying you have to be athletic. I'm not saying you have to play varsity anything. I'm saying as young men, and why am I not saying young women? Because there's no young women in front of me right now. Maybe you're listening at home, I don't know. But for the guys here, this is extremely key. And I will stretch it as far as saying for youth as well, it's key. Why is it key? There's a brother and I were speaking this weekend. I'm just coming back from a retreat right now. So by the way, I am stuttering a lot and slurring. I understand. I'm just very tired right now. Just came back from a retreat. But I was speaking to a brother there, and this brother was talking to me about weight loss. Oh, by the way, I just found out who Kushal is. I never knew this person was before. You kept mentioning it to me. So I didn't know who he was. You guys best friends? I saw his website and stuff. I had a client who was telling me about him. I had a client who's a lawyer of mine for my education consulting who was telling me about him. And then I was like, how do you know this name? I heard this name before. And I was like, oh yeah, you. Then he's told me that this guy is really good and et cetera, et cetera. I was like, oh, cool. So when he said it, I was like, Rashad. Anyway, not inside joke. Are you still with him? Still, or no? It's not. Yeah. Just asking. Yeah. So his dad began to participate in sports. All of us, men, women alike, should participate. And the masjid should hear this as well. You have to set up the opportunities for girls to have sports. There's no reason why girls should not be physically fit. No one's saying you have to have 48-inch biceps and have an 8-pack, etc. No one's saying that about anyone. They have to be in shape. What does it mean to be in shape? Consider the following. Your body was given to you by whom? Allah. So I let you borrow my car. Hudayfa's like, brother, I want to go to 7-Eleven. Can I borrow your car? I don't want to be late for Dhuhr. I'm like, absolutely. License? Permit? Okay. And I just give it to you anyway. So he goes. He brings the car back. And then he's like, oh, and I got you a drink as well. I know you're thirsty after beating us in basketball. So actually, that was all you. That wasn't I didn't really do much. I scored only a few points this game. So I'm like, oh, cool. I get the keys, and then he's like, yeah, it's in the car. I go to the car, and there's a door missing. I'm like, bro, what happened? He's like, oh yeah, I forgot to close the door, and I was backing out, hit the side of something, and the door popped up, but don't worry, the car still works. Did he return my car? Yes. Is it still functioning? Yes. Is it as I gave it to him? No, and that's what amana is. Amana is you return something as it's given to you, with the exception of basic wear and tear. I can't give him the car to borrow. Let's say the car has 10,000 miles on it. It doesn't, it has much more. And then you borrow it, and then you return it back, and I can't say, well, you put 5 miles on it. That's exactly why I gave it to you. The idea for me is like, if you say I'm gonna go down to 7-Eleven and come back, to put 5 miles makes sense. If I see 1,000 miles more on it, like I remember there's this friend in Madrasa, so 2 of my friends, one of them had a car. The other one didn't have a car. So the other one's like, hey, can I borrow your car? I want to go down to the Amoco, I think it was then, or Mobile, one of the two, Amoco. I want to get something to eat and drink. I want to get a snack. So my friend with the car gave it to him. So he went, and then we didn't see him in the afternoon. And we didn't see him in the evening. We didn't see him that night. We didn't see him in the morning. The next afternoon, there he comes. And we're like, what? Like, where were you? Like, we're about to call the cops. Like, car's missing, you're missing, etc. And he's like, oh man, you'll never believe what happened. Like, I went down to the gas station, and I was pumping, I got food, and then I felt bad, like you let me borrow your car, so I want to pump gas for you. It's only a mile away. So I pumped gas for you, and then as I finished, I got in the car and I started moving, and I forgot to take the pump, the nozzle out, and then it tore off the whatever the structure is, and then the gas started leaking everywhere, and someone yelled at me, so I freaked out. Then I floored it, and then a cop came after, so I took off, and then this whole story, and then he's like, I drove and I got lost in this area, and then I had to sort of sleep in the car at night till the morning where I could sort of see clear, and then I drove back. And they're like, cool. We go check the speedometer. His story does not check out. That would have been like 10 miles max that he did that. 1 mile there, 1 mile back, and maybe 5, 6, 8 miles if he got lost. He put 100 solid miles in that car plus. His story did not check out. We found out later what he actually did with the car. I'm not going to go into it. We're in a masjid in the end. But the idea is that it was a complete lie. Now, did he return the car? Yes. Did he actually put gas in it? Yes. Did he add any dents, etc.? No, he didn't. But he put 100 miles when we gave it to him for a 1 mile trip. He violated the amana. So normal wear and tear is fine. If you say, brother, I want to borrow your kameez, I forgot mine at home, and I give it to you, and then you bring it back and it's sweaty, that's normal wear and tear. Yeah, you wear a shirt and you sweat in it, that's fine. You come back and there's a sleeve missing, and this bottom part is torn off, and 3 buttons are gone from here, and the back there's a big S. And I'm like, what happened to my shirt? You're like, oh, nothing, it's just normal wear and tear. That's not true. Your bodies are the same way. There's normal wear and tear. If we live 70 years of wear and tear should be on the body. If we live 50 years, then 50 years of wear and tear should be on the body. But we shouldn't die at 50 and die with bodies of 90-year-olds because we completely destroyed our bodies because we didn't take care of it. So the body is an amana. That's number 1 why we should be engaged in sports. Number 2, and this is not just Khabib and his dad. Malcolm in the previous book, The Fruit of Islam, they were very serious. The nation of Islam was very serious about getting people in shape and not overeating, etc. Number 2, why is this also important? Because it brings structure in your life. How many of you, when you come after school, you're like, okay, I'm just going to go and do something at home? Anyone like, I'm just going to go home and relax and just chill? Anyone? Is that structured? How long does relaxing and chilling last?
Half an hour to an hour.
Okay, so that's a pretty, 30 minutes a big window, but at least it's within there. Some people like, I'm just going to rest a little. 3 hours later, they're still resting. Like, we've been there before. But if you know you're going to come home, like, I'm going to rest for a half hour because I have boxing class. I'm going to rest for 15 minutes. I'm going to just have a snack because I have basketball with friends or whatever. I'm going to go swimming at the pool, so I'm just going to rest for an hour, change, and go. It provides structure. I'm going to go an hour swimming. I have an hour between now and swimming. I can't really eat because you shouldn't eat before swimming. I have some homework. I'll get that in. You begin to manage your time. And so one of the benefits of sports also is that it manages your time. It doesn't have to be, look, you don't have to play football. You don't have to play basketball. You don't have to play golf. Play table tennis. You can go swimming. You can do martial arts. There's something that anyone can do. Even the people who are the most uncoordinated can do something. And even the people who are the least physically inclined can still do something. They can go for a walk. But to keep the body as an amana, number one, and to keep the day structured is very important. Number three, what else is the benefit? It gives an edge of confidence, even when we're playing back outside. So I understand when you play me, there's going to be a lack of confidence because you guys are obviously going to lose. But aside from that, I even saw some of you on the court today. Even after like 2 or 3 air balls, you hit that one shot, all of a sudden you're walking with the swagger of Steph Curry. Even though you only hit one shot, and even that was really lucky, right? But still, you get that swag all of a sudden. There's some confidence that builds because you did something right. Anyone ever go to school and feel like, I just can't do anything right? I'm a teacher and I feel that way. Forget being a student, I know how that feels. And all of a sudden, and we do it in professional school as well, like, I just can't get it right. But all of a sudden, you go for a walk, and you set, let's say, you have a Fitbit, and you set, I don't know, your goal for the day is 2,000 steps, and you come back and you see at the end of the day, because that walk, you achieve your 2,000 steps, that's a W. You gotta win. And it makes you feel better. You know, you're like, I want to get in better shape, which is not, it's not a good goal. A goal is actually having some tangible objective. I want to lose 3 pounds, you know, over the course of 3 weeks. That's a tangible objective. And then anyway, you do so by walking 3 times a day for 3 weeks. I don't know, I'm using threes. And you lose your 3 pounds. You're like, this is great. I reached my objective. It makes you feel better. And so sports, it has this relationship with the physical. And what's more important, the physical or the spiritual, honestly speaking? Spiritual, but what do you see? The physical. And if you abandon the physical, the spiritual will never progress. If a person begins to not take care of their body and they try to go pray when they're 85 years old, they'll be on a chair doing so. Remember Faruqi Saab in Michigan? Not Michigan, Milwaukee? We had a guy in Milwaukee, Faruqi uncle, who was like 80-something years old. He had a bit of a stoop in his back as well, quite advanced in age. And every day he prayed, standing, all the motions. He would fast at least 4 or 5 days a week. When Isha was over, as the imam, I would leave. Sometimes I forgot something, I'd come back half hour, 2 hours later, he would still be there praying, just the extra prayers. Standing, not even sitting. So I asked him once, like, how do you do this? You remember Faruqi Saab, like, how do you do this? He's like, I work out. He goes to the gym, he's on the elliptical and he's working out. Why does he work out? Not so he can go in front of the mirror as an 85-year-old and flex or something. He's doing it so he has functional benefit. What's the functional benefit here? He's able to stand for longer periods of time. So there's a benefit of being physically active. And I feel that religious people, they never get physically active because they think it's like contrary to religion. It's not. A person can be religious and be physically active, and there's a combination of both. In the Prophet ﷺ, he was very physically fit. Never once did his stomach protrude out beyond his chest. He had a broad chest. He had a flat stomach. He had very few gray hairs. I mean, his body itself did not age that much. I think he had 13 total white hairs on both his head and his beard. And, you know, he raced and he beat his wife, who was significantly younger than him. And he beat the top wrestler in Makkatul Mukarramah. The Prophet ﷺ did all of this. Why? Because he was someone who took care of himself. Now, he didn't go for like a 2-mile jog every day. His life itself was a life that allowed for him to be physically active. He would walk. But when he would walk, you guys know how the Prophet walked, right? He didn't lollygag. How do we walk? We sort of walk, we're sort of just like, you know, like just sort of, we're sort of moving around, and I don't even know how to say it. We're just like moseying around. The Prophet, when he would walk, he would incline slightly forward. And then when he would move, he would lift his foot off the ground. None of this dragging stuff. You can hear people walking because they drag their feet. The Prophet would actually lift his foot. He would place it down, but he wouldn't stomp. He wouldn't be harsh on the ground. So to raise your foot and lower it actually requires extra muscle. Because to raise your foot and drop it hard, that means you're letting your muscles go. It's just dead weight. But to raise your foot and put it down softly, now you're retracting some muscles as well. And you're actually, it's very, and then he would walk in such a way. It was very focused. He wouldn't just look up and walk around. He looked in the direction he's going, usually pointed downwards a little. And the companions would wear themselves all out trying to keep up with him. That's the hadith. But actually get tired, like, just give me a minute. And he was older than them. So,
Hug.
he was older than them, but he did so. And how did he eat? Can anyone show me how the Prophet ate? Anyone know? Yes. Everyone always answers like this. This is not correct. This is one way it's a sunnah to eat. But the way he actually ate, he preferred eating, and Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu used to do this, and he used to love it. He would sit almost like, this is how baseball catchers sit, right? But he did one more thing. He didn't sit on the balls of his feet. He sat on the heels of his feet and he ate. So if you're sitting like this, everyone try this for a moment. Not everyone. Whoever wants to try this for a moment. Sit on the heels of your feet. Sit back on your feet. Not leaning against something, okay? And just hold it. Hold it. Just pretend like you're eating. No, not on the balls of your feet. On the heels of your feet. On the balls of your feet, anyone could sit like this. I could eat till my stomach's full like this. Like this. Get your heels down. Be flat-footed and now eat. Okay, you're doing this. How are your legs feeling? Begin to burn a little? Okay? How's your stomach feeling? Does it feel a little tight? So you're not going to get that much food in. He finishes eating. He says his dua. He stands up. Stand up. Everything's calm again. And your stomach all of a sudden is opened up. But he doesn't return to sit back eating. He's like, oh, I had enough. So he would not overeat. By the way, what's the sunnah of eating? Trick question.
1/3 food, 1/3 water, 1/3 egg.
Good, that's actually not right. It's a trick question. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 is the extreme. 1/7 is actually closer to the sunnah. Actually, a few bites, but I'm not saying do that. What I'm saying is the Prophet ﷺ, his habits were very healthy. He was very much in shape. In battle, building the masjid, etc., he was involved in all of this. Climbing, anyone ever go to Hajj or Umrah and climb a cave to Cave Hira? No? You did. How's the climb? It's serious, right? I only saw it, I never went up it. It's a serious climb. And he did it. And not only did he do it, when he was 40 doing it, my age, well actually I'm 40 Gregorian, 40, almost 42 Islamic. His wife Khadija radiallahu anha was doing it, and she was in her 60s, she was in her mid to late 50s at that point. She would also climb to go drop off food to him. You know, if our spouse says, hey, can you drop off food to my work? Oh my God. She'll go up the mountain, drop it off, and walk back home. And if you ever look at Mecca to the cave is not close. And you can't just Uber over there. But they were fit people. So these individuals, back to Khabib and his family, they were fit because of their environment. Now our environment it's not conducive to being fit. It's not. Just because of the fact that we just live in a more luxurious time. I'm not saying it's bad. It's one we live. Alhamdulillah. It's nice to have a car. It's nice to have carpet. It's nice to have temperature-controlled lifestyles. It's great. But because we have this extra comfort, we have to put a little extra effort to give ourselves some hardship or some difficulty so our bodies can grow stronger. Do you guys know what plantar fasciitis is? Have you ever heard plantar fasciitis? You probably did, but. So it's like some of the basketball players got this a lot. Like the bottom of their feet, it begins to ache a lot, and it's very hard to take steps. You have this thing called the fascia in your body. The fascia is like this thin film that sort of surrounds over like the muscles, etc. And the feet in particular, that area is very sensitive. So over time, what did people do? Let me take a step back. If you were to describe one continent in a global race, who would win? Which continent? Asia? Yeah, in a race? Dude, Africa, because we're Asian, right? We're the ones that are sitting on the side of the race saying, when's the biryani coming, right? No, yeah, those are always Africans, a Nigerian, a Kenyan, they're always winning. So Nike did research as to why did they always win. And they interviewed athletes and they watched their training. And you know what they found? How are they often training? Certain regions of Africa. No shoes. And I saw this. The Zambians where I live, they would not wear shoes. They wouldn't. Now, when you're not walking with shoes, what happens? You develop your fascia stronger. Then in races, they would get shoes for the race. So imagine you're running a marathon or an ultra marathon, etc. And now you're running this, and you're used to the hard ground. And then you put on shoes. It feels like you're walking on air. Versus us, who are always wearing shoes, and then you put on shoes, it feels normal. So we go from normal feeling to getting sore. They go from normal feeling to feeling light on air. So for them, so actually that's when Nike developed the Metcons, the Metcon 1, 2, 3, and they developed all these different things because they were studying this, and they actually developed a shoe for people from those regions in Africa, just like it would be comfortable, but it wouldn't be too much of a comfort because that could actually be counterintuitive. But my point is what? They live in regions that are more physically demanding. So Khabib lived in a region more physically demanding. When he would race, he speaks, we haven't gotten to that chapter yet, but just to let you know, when he would run as training. If we want to run to train, where do we run? In the gym, on a, treadmill, up and down Bloomingdale, maybe there's a trail nearby. Where did he run? The mountains. He literally said, this is the mountain I run up and down for my warm-up. He would sprint up and down as a warm-up. Has anyone ever tried to run a mountain, or jog a mountain, or even climb a mountain? Forget that, a hill. Has anyone ever gone to IFS and just gone up that hill just to go down for sledding? Or even a Cameron Park, when it's snowing, you go up the hill with your sled, you're like, you get tired. But they were in shape. So my point is, one of the lessons we take from this is that we have to establish a spiritual culture, yes. An academic culture, yes. But there has to be a physical culture in Islam. We can't just be out of shape. Our parents, who are from overseas, were accustomed to a harder life. If we had to go live in their lives for even a week, I guarantee we would not be able to do it. I guarantee it. If we had to use the toilets that they use, the hole in the ground, we wouldn't be able to do it. If we had to, my father's from Yakhutpura. It's a place that's not as privileged in India. And he told me that their home had like a couple rooms. They had 8 siblings and the 2 parents. And I think he had 1 or 2 dudka bhai, like a foster sibling, for lack of better words. And then on top of that, they were poor. You guys know what khagina is? Yeah. What's khagina? It's an egg type of breakfast, like an egg salad. You put egg and onions, etc. When we were younger, before we were born, my mom had asked him, between them 2, should we use 2 eggs or 3 eggs for a 2-person khagina? And he's like, 1's enough. And she's like, no, I said 2 or 3. And so she was from a little more of a well-off family. So later she found out when they were younger, the family, all 9 of them, 8 siblings, him, and then the parents, 11 of them, they were so poor, they had 1 egg and then a lot of onions, and that's how they would bake up their khagina for everyone, for all 11 people. But that's how you become accustomed. And so they were used to a harder life. We're not. So we have to do some things, and what he mentions here is to set up a physical culture within the household and within your Muslim community. And we'll pick up on that next week. I'm going to go get my older kids for prayer, so I'll stop over here. Those of you who don't have wudu, please go do wudu. We are meeting next week. When is the bonfire? Saturday? So Friday after Isha is the bonfire for the sisters. Yeah, the side check. Looks very nice. And Saturday after Isha is the bonfire for the brothers. Ages 12 and up? 13 and up? Do you remember? 10 and up? 13 and up? 6 and up? 13 and up, right? Yeah. Okay. 13 and up. Around that age and up. And so inshallah, I look forward to seeing you all there after Isha. Wa akhiru da'wan. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Oh, by the way, guys, should we keep it at 12 or 12:30? Are you guys gonna come to play? Because if you're not, it's not a problem. But we just got here, and the poor guy, he's always losing. He needs some help. So, do you guys want to keep it? If you want to keep it 12, I'll come at 12 to play. I mean, you guys came only like 7-8 minutes after I came, but so are you guys gonna come to play? So we'll try one more week. If we see people are not showing up, no problem. We'll just have only the talk. We won't do the physical activity outside, which goes completely against what we just spoke about. But it is what it is. Okay. Okay, हम लोग जो तो दे दूँ.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر